Hey guys, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how I created the visuals for this building projection mapping. I'll break down the sequences and show you some techniques that can help you create interesting motion design and animations. So let's jump right into it. It is important to have a photo of the building from the place where your video will be projected. You can later use this photo for drawing the outlines of the building, and I'll also show you how you can generate lines from this image using some built-in effects in After Effects. Apart from that, you can create a 3D photo scan of the building by taking a lot of pictures from different angles, which you then feed into a photogrammetry software that will produce a 3D model. Popular choices are, for example, Reality Capture, Metashape, or a free and open source alternative, Meshroom. I've used this model when I was doing the ivy growing animation, but there is a lot more you can do with it once you have it in 3D. I might do a separate tutorial on how I made the ivy scene in Blender. First, let's take a look at these glowing lines. In After Effects, I imported the image of the building and applied the Vegas effect to it. And you can see we get these lines right away. If you feel like there isn't enough detail in the lines, you can actually add a curves effect before the Vegas effect and adjust it. Change the blend mode to transparent. There's a lot of settings you can play around with. You can also animate the curves effect, which will give you an interesting transition. Of course, you can change the color and add some glow with a glow effect. Usually using more duplications of the glow effect with different settings will give you a better result. You can also animate the rotation in the Vegas effect. I used a simple expression. So just experiment with it. A similar effect that gives you the outlines from an image but behaves a bit differently is the Find Edges effect. You can again use effects like Glow, CC Glass or Flow Motion effect, which I use to deform the image, leaving me with some surreal results. Another option is to use the Turbulent Displace effect, which also gives you a lot of options to deform the visuals. It's just a matter of playing around with the settings until you get something you like. You can keyframe the various properties manually or using some simple expressions like the time expression or wiggle. In this next sequence, I manually drew some lines around the windows and parts of the building to highlight the structure. To animate these outlines, go to the shape layer, and under this button you have a bunch of options you can use. I went with the trim path option and animated the end property. That's how you get this animation. To make it smoother, easy is the keyframes. And tweak it in the graph editor. Next, you need to do this for all of the other shapes and animate the various properties. Now, this process is quite time consuming and can get boring, so I wanna show you some really cool plugins that can save you a ton of time. First one is called Copy Ease from AEJuice, which is completely free. Here is what it can do. Normally when you copy and paste keyframes onto a different layer, it pastes the exact same values. So when you copy, for example, position from one object to another, it will overwrite and replace the original position. But let's say we only want to copy the speed or the easing you have in the graph editor. So open the AEJuice Copy Ease tool, select the keyframes you want to copy the speed from, and click Copy. Then select the keyframes where you want to apply that animation and click Paste. You can also use the shortcuts Shift-C and Shift-V. When we look into the graph editor, as you can see, we get the exact same curve. The cool thing about this is you can also copy the speed from position keyframes and paste it, for example, on scale keyframes. They don't even need to have the same space between them. Moreover, you can also browse through some easing presets and then paste them directly onto your keyframes. At the moment, all shapes are animated at the same time, but I want to have some offset between them to make the animation more interesting. So you could manually move each layer by a few frames, but I'm just too lazy to do that. Luckily, AEJuice has this free shifter plugin that does exactly what we need. Select the layers, and you have a few options there to shift, align and stagger. I want to offset each layer by 3 frames like this, and I'll click stagger. And that's it, very simple. You can find these free plugins down in the description below, as well as many other useful tools from AEJuice. An awesome option is the I Want It All bundle, where you get all these packs, including things like transitions, light leaks, text templates and a bunch of cool stuff, so I highly suggest you to give it a look. You can find the links in the description. To get this glowing effect for the lines, you can use something like Saber, where you can choose to use the mask path. In this sequence I created some masks around the pillars and windows, added a fire and animated them. To create the explosion I used the Shatter effect, where you can select the pattern and play with the force and physics options. In the final scene I had this green screen fish, and I brought some of the pillars to the front to give it a bit of depth. For the last transition I used this ink bleed and set the layer below it as Luma Matte. Finally I placed all these sequences on a timeline and experimented with using some transitions from the AEJuice packs. I played with the timing while also editing it to the beat of the song. And we are done. I hope you found this useful, and if you did, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.